Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? It is a new day, it is a new week, and it's time to get social. My name is KaVonna, and welcome to the Introverts Social Hour. Hello, hello. Welcome. Today we are talking about being anxious and introverted. I brought my fellow introverted friend from college, Alania, to talk about her experiences today with me. Something to know about Alania: she is a current master's student studying clinical psychology in her pursuit of licensure as a marriage and family therapist in California. Having done her Bachelor of Science in Clinical Psychology at UC San Diego, Alania became interested in helping others due to her experience with mental health, especially anxiety and social anxiety. While juggling anxiety, Alani has learned what it means to be an introvert and how there are strengths that lie within the trait, despite the common stereotypes and biases that are thrown at introverts. Please welcome Alania. Woo woo.
Hello, hi.
How
That
are
was a
you
good
today?
bio.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
great. I
Who
wonder
wrote
who wrote
that?
that. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We just talked about had some technology issues, but
Mhm.
we're going in. We're going strong. But I am super excited to talk to you about this topic today. I think when it comes to like people I know who are introverts, you're like one of the people I like go to because I know we're introverts. Like it's for sure. I feel like I can blend it a little bit more. But I always like think of like you when it comes to like who do I know who's an introvert who's like a true introvert, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm super glad that I was able to pull you in. So thank you for coming today.
Yeah, of course.
Um
Thanks for having me.
yes, of course. Um I do think it's really interesting to talk about this topic in a sense of it being like super specific, especially because like usually I don't think people think of anxiety and being introverted as like a blend, you know? And not like it's just because mainly people don't really maybe talk about it as much. But it's like people can be anxious and people are introverted. So it's like how do those blend and how do those really reflect in people's daily lives, as they relate to both of those things. And usually we don't really know because I don't know for you, but in my case scenario, I wasn't usually always like talking about it, like, oh, I'm having an anxious day or an anxious moment.
Mhm.
Or hey, I know for a fact I'm introverted now. Here is how I go about things. So it's just like a figuring out process.
Yes, definitely.
hmm Um, I do want to kind of like intro experience for a second too. As someone who especially nowadays, is like anxious and introverted. Um, I want to say I started getting to know myself and understand it a little bit as I got older. Because, like, as I said, it's like I wasn't really saying anything much. But as I got older, I started to understand a little bit more of where I landed, specifically in college, too. I didn't really put titles to how I was feeling until even after college, to be honest. Um, but as that even after college though, I think that anxiety just grew.
Mhm.
Graduating in pandemic is one thing already right
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
So definitely got more anxious after COVID. And then outside of COVID, also just like once again graduating in that year and just like the levels of uncertainty and stress that come with graduation anyways, on top of like graduating in a pandemic. So I think something activated there.
Yeah.
And
And
it's like
also,
never.
yeah, like just being like an adult, like literally just being thrown into like being an adult and having to grasp like what it's like and like getting having to pay for the bills, trying to
Mhm.
work, all that fun stuff. So yeah.
All the fun stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I talk about that with some friends in the podcast actually before this. So adulting is hard. So follow
Yeah.
up on that because it
Hmm.
really is a struggle out here. Um, for me, I don't know how you feel about it, but coming to that realization, especially like after college as well, as someone who's like who likes certainty and likes a bit of structure, um,
Yes.
I kind of got thrown out of loop. And I think that's what even, like, made the anxiety spike a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, where did you notice, like, your understanding of yourself in regards to, like, anxiety and introversion?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely want to agree that I would say once we graduated and it was during the pandemic, I think the pandemic like made like my understanding of like my anxiety and like my mental health, it like kind of spiraled. So
Mhm.
it kind of heightened like my anxiety, especially like my social anxiety and kind of like interacting with other people
Mhm.
despite, with the whole lockdown and all that stuff. So I would say like definitely like during the pandemic, I kind of was going through like a period of just like what's going on, like I don't know, I don't feel like myself anymore, like I
Mhm.
like what you said, like there wasn't really a label to it, and I was
Yeah.
just trying to figure out like what is happening with me and if there's a word that I can put to it. And I think it wasn't until um I I'm with my current therapist. I see a therapist right now, and we
Mhm.
started talking about what I have, which is anxiety, and how how it kind of just developed, like because of the pandemic, because of being thrown into the world after graduating as like a first gen student, and
Mhm.
becoming an adult, having to do all that adult stuff, and just trying to like understand like the world that like we live in. So yeah, definitely kind of like on the same boat with you during the pandemic once we graduated.
Mhm.
And yeah.
That forced introspection, right? Like, we had no
Mhm.
choice but to kinda, like, really understand what was happening with us in response to what was happening, like, around us.
Mhm.
So, yeah, definitely a time, an integral part for sure.
Yes.
Um, for me, I do wonder, like, being anxious and introverted are 2 separate things. They
Mhm.
can blend and, intertwine in our lives, but they are different. But because, like, being introverted is, like, usually, like, personality, that's you, it's who you are,
Mhm.
and then anxiety kinda tends to pop up depending on person, in different ways. I tend to see for me how they both play a part sometimes in daily living, and that's why I wanna talk about that today.
Mhm.
Whether it's, like, interactions in regards to relationships, strangers on the street, personal life, work life, whatever that looks like. So have you seen, like, where anxiety and introversion, like, tend to blend together for you in your life, out of curiosity?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that first point that you pointed out about like how they're both different, but they can also blend.
Mhm.
So I definitely wanted to highlight that. And also, I guess disclosure, we're not professionals, or I'm not a professional yet,
Exactly.
so I don't want to give like any, like yeah, I don't know everything yet. But
Yes.
I would
The yet
say
is I love the yet, though, I wanna say,
yes.
yeah, but yes, reminder, we are not professionals, we were just talking about our personal experiences, but the
Exactly.
yet, I love that.
Yet,
Mhm.
yet we experience it. So
Mhm.
I feel like it's only fair that, we can talk about this type of stuff. But yeah, I'd say, so the question is, where do I see both of them kind of blending in? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Definitely in groups. Like,
Ooh.
I think back
Yes.
to when we used to be, when we used to work as like back in
House
college when we
advisors,
got like
yeah.
yeah, house advisors,
Mhm.
like in our group meetings. Oh God, like just being in like a group with a bunch of like extroverts, like
Mhm.
you definitely could pick out like, oh yeah, that person's gonna be talking a lot, that person's gonna be making comments here and there. And that
Yes.
was kind of my like anxiety would start rising, and my, my shyness, my introversion of like, okay, I'm just gonna sit back and just
Mhm.
watch it all unfold.
Mhm.
And I, growing up, I've realized that so I would say growing up, I've always been that type of person where I like observing the room. I like observing how
Mhm.
people talk and interact. So I definitely had like that how do you say it? Like that introverted personality. I just
Yeah.
didn't really know like the label to it until now, until recently.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely in groups was is where I would see both my anxiety go up and my introversion kind of tie in. And I kind of just, not want to participate in the group and just want to dip. Like I feel like I'd be so overstimulated,
Mhm.
especially
Oh,
like
yes.
when it comes to like I mean, I don't really go to concerts now. I don't really go to big events, but when there's just so much happening, lots of people talking, like I just feel like my cup just gets full and that's kind of it. I'm like, all right, peace out. I'm a dip. I'm tired.
Yes. We're definitely going to talk about like how social anxiety ties in with that because I feel like I also see
Mhm.
where that tends to happen a bit more, specifically with social anxiety. Um, but yeah, the overstimulation is
Mhm.
so true. And we're going to talk about that too. So I'm glad you brought those up. So I'm excited to do that, the loop back.
Mhm.
Um, but for my people who aren't aware, I did want to like make sure that we like talk about what these things are. We're throwing out these words, and it's important to like state how we know them, and So quick background. So I told you about Alania. We studied the same major, right, in college, cognitive behavioral neuroscience.
I did clinical
Oh, you did
psychology.
clinical psychology. Okay, just kidding. So, but we both did like brain science
Mhm.
and behavioral science. So
Yeah.
this has always been my like cup of tea. I'm not as connected now as Alani is, I would say, but I always think it's important to like drop
Mhm.
some facts for the peoples. So through the DSM, if you don't know what that is, it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That's like the psychology manual for everyone. Anxiety is defined as excessive worry and apprehensive expectations, occurring more days than not for at least 6 months about a number of events or activities such as work or school performance. So I do want to make sure that we're noting like we're not necessarily talking about anxiety disorders, just like general anxiety.
Mhm.
And then for introversion, through the American Psychological Association, they define it as an orientation toward the internal private world of oneself and one's inner thoughts and feelings, rather than toward the outer world of people and things. So I want to emphasize that it is a personality type. So you've got introverts, extroverts, and also ambiverts who tend to like tie a little bit more in the middle. I've known I was an introvert since like high school. I did like the Myers-Briggs test for like people
Mhm.
who know what's up. I don't know if you did you ever do one of those, Alania? Like
Yeah,
before college?
wasn't it called the I recently took it because of this
Oh,
podcast. What's it called, like the 16 personalities? Because
I
I think there's multiple.
so this one is the one maybe they did a different rebrand, but like the original it's like the Myers-Briggs and it's like you get like the INFJ,
Yes,
IST, da 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 that
that's
one.
the
Yeah.
one. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember I say that because I was originally an INFJ. So
Mm.
and then I remember I retook in college and the I was very much still there. So
Mm.
I've known I was introvert for a while, but
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that y'all as listeners just understood like the general basis of what we're talking about. Once again, we are not professionals,
Mm-mm.
but we're talking about our personal experiences and what we found that has helped us and maybe something can help you or even at the end when you're listening to this podcast and you want to reach out and give us some advice too, because I'll take it
Oh
if
yeah,
you have anything.
definitely.
For sure, for sure. Um, but speaking of so because they're two very different things, they typically don't go hand in hand. I
Mhm.
am curious about what you think some common misconceptions are in regards to first introverts, and then we'll
Yeah.
go to anxiety. So let's talk about that. What do you I'll tell mine first, give you some time to think for a second.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I think what tends to be the case is the minute someone hears introvert, they automatically think antisocial, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not the case. Like we talked about, overstimulation is a big thing for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am a teacher, which is the weirdest job for an introvert, and that which tends to be the case of why I'm overstimulated for 9 hours a day. I come home and I talk to no one
That's so
because I
funny.
have to regroup. Um, but it's true. Like if I'm in a room and there's about 20, 30 people and they're all going a little crazy, a little wild,
Mhm.
crazy in my eyes, but in more so just like they're louder than I would, need to be. And just there's a lot going on, a lot of movements, a lot of sounds. I get overstimulated. So it's not about being antisocial, it's about me preserving my energy to like regroup myself personally. Um and then also too in regards to like smaller situations, I think here's where we tie in with anxiety. I kind of get a little bit of social anxiety. I've kind of figured that out over time. So when it comes to like meeting new people or trying to engage and figure people out, that's also my part of my introversion is like trying to get an idea of who you are, but also I'm like being anxious about understanding you and meeting you and oh, are we going to be friends? What's going to happen here?
Mhm.
So then that tends to be the case of me like not maybe necessarily making friends quickly or making friends or people thinking that I don't like them because I'm kind of like,
Mhm.
being a bit of a recluse because of those like social anxieties, but also tied in with my introversion. So that's mine.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you work as a teacher because I also
Hmm.
work with kiddos.
Hmm.
And so it's like by the end of the day, I'm also very just like I'm tired. Like I just want to
Yes.
lay in bed, go on my phone, that's it. Like yeah, all my
Hmm.
energy is used up by working with all these like toddlers and school-aged kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say intro some stereotypes for introverts is definitely shy.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
like,
Different
oh,
thing.
yeah, because you're an introvert, you're shy.
Hmm.
You don't have either they say you don't have friends or you don't have that many friends. But
Hmm.
it's like what you said, it's kind of like, we don't necessarily, how do I phrase it? It's not, I'd say we have friends, but we don't necessarily need like the whole world to be our friend, if
Yeah,
that
like
makes
picking and choosing like your
sense.
circle, your people. Yeah, being very
Hmm.
specific. Yeah,
Hmm.
I get that. Hmm.
And then also, I kind of, well, I guess this isn't really a stereotype, but I kind of also want to put in that, with introversion, you know, with the certain friends that we have, like I've noticed this for myself, like, with certain friends, I feel like I'm like the most extroverted person there.
Hmm.
But it's because of those specific friends that I have that I feel comfortable with, that I feel like I can use the energy that I have, and don't necessarily feel overstimulated or I feel
Hmm.
tired by hanging out with them, but it's more like I feel like as if my cup is being filled to where I need it
Yes.
to be, if that makes sense. I'm getting
Yes.
my dopamine chase
Mhm.
or whatever it's called. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I like the way
Mhm.
you say it though, like your cup being filled instead of it like being poured out in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much on key. Like I don't think I have a lot of like necessarily close-knit friends, but I also think that close-knit friends are close-knit friends for a reason.
Hmm.
Um, but then also too, like that's a whole different situation, but like as adults, you cannot give your attention to 20 different people at a time plus family. It just doesn't happen.
Hmm.
um but definitely choosing, yeah, once again going back to figuring out who you are. Like, am I giving my time to you because my time, like, I get depleted quick, like, are we going to understand each other, those kind of things.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm also thinking about like with anxiety, kind of like how that also ties in. Like,
Mhm.
it's so funny. Like going into this podcast, I was getting anxiety because I
Oh,
was like,
see.
oh my gosh, I was like, oh no, like
Mhm.
like just like what you mentioned, how like a little bit of like that social anxiety kind of comes into play, where you're just
Yes.
you start thinking about like, oh, okay, like how when it comes to like meeting people or hanging out with them, you're kind of just like already
Hmm.
thinking about like, all right, like what's my game plan, how am I
Yeah.
how am I gonna figure out if this person likes me or not, and that
Yes.
type of piece. I think that's
Mhm.
kind of where my anxiety lies. It's a little bit of like wanting to be
Mhm.
accepted by others
Mhm.
and not wanting to get rejected. um and
I get that.
so yeah, that's hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's also good because that was my next question of like common misconceptions as well, so we could blend
Hmm.
into that. But um I also understand that too of like the overthinking, that the
Hmm.
anxious thoughts right there for sure, for sure. But I do want to let you know anytime we interact, just know I'm coming to you for a reason, girl. So you could always count on me because I literally adore you. We don't talk that much, but I adore you for sure.
Mhm.
So
Oh, heart. I know
yes.
they don't see this, but heart.
Yes, we're giving hearts. But I did want to like mention like some common misconceptions for anxiety.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm not as vocal as much. I think I've become a little bit more vocal now, especially understanding it. But I think I want people to understand like it's not embarrassing, to be
No.
someone who is anxious, and everyone at some point does go through it.
Mhm.
Nerves and all those things. So you're definitely not alone. I think that's another thing is like there's someone out there who can relate to your feeling, not maybe why exactly it caused it, but having um those like relatable feelings and like
Mhm.
even like physical reactions. I can't stand those. Those are
Yeah.
the worst. But yeah, the common misconception I feel like is that it's not as common because I think people
Mhm.
tend to go directly to, oh, disorder. Like, I don't have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
Like, no, you gotta get that actually like, diagnosed.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, if you're having anxiety, that's a normal thing.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I definitely they definitely tend when people think of anxiety, tends to go towards like the negative route.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm working on with my therapist on rewiring that perspective of what anxiety is and instead viewing it as like a strength and like a protection towards something. Like, okay, like if I'm, for example, like recently I talked to her about how I tend to get anxious going to the gym
Mhm.
because, there's a bunch of people there, that social anxiety type stuff.
Yeah.
And, trying to rethink that, I'm feeling anxious because maybe I'm trying to protect myself for some reason, for like insecurity or who knows what. But
Mhm.
I think people tend to go towards that negative route and tend to like pathologize people who may be feeling anxious. And it's definitely like a normal reaction. It's something that majority people tend to deal with, and
Yeah.
it's important to vocalize it and have it be heard that it's normal to have anxiety and to feel anxious towards certain things.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, I do want to like connect the dots here. So, as someone who like I've noticed my introversion tends to like get higher and I kind of recluse and try to like control my emotions in the sense of like anxiety as we kind of like talked about a bit. Um and we talked about like how you can relate. Have you seen outside of like specifically social
Hmm.
events how your anxiety and your introversion tie in a little bit more in daily living outside of social events?
Yeah, let's see.
Mhm. It's a very, like, specific one for sure.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it a little bit and then, give you some time to process, like, your thought.
Hmm.
I think of, like, one socially, of course, I think that's the biggest one where it shows up the most. Um, I think it could be, like a domino effect. So, like,
Hmm.
for example, maybe my anxiety got caused by something else completely unrelated to anything social, it's a personal thing I'm dealing with. And then now, because I'm having an anxious moment, I have decided to not connect with the social world. So maybe my introversion kind of like clicks in a little bit more. And
Hmm.
I'm like, please stay away from me. I am personally processing my thoughts because I think as an introvert, for me, because everyone doesn't process this way. So that's why I'm specifying for me how I get through the things that I'm working through, it's usually by myself, um, to kinda just, like, process where I'm at. I'm very self-aware, and so it ends up me, like, just I need personal thought, personal space, more than likely quiet to just, like, figure it out. So, if I'm having an anxious day or an anxious moment and that there's a social event planned for me, I might tap out. For sure, for sure. So
Hmm.
I see how that ties in outside of social once again, but how that can then lead to other things.
Hmm.
Mhm,
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah, what comes to mind is so I'm the type of person that really likes routine and structure. Like I literally love creating to-do lists. I
same.
have multiple planners. so so for example, like when I wasn't right now I'm on summer break, but back when I was in school, during like finals, I would literally like would have to, try to plan out, trying to do schoolwork and on top of that, trying to do actual like work. And, if one little thing did not align within my schedule, it
Mhm,
caused lots of anxiety. Um, and I felt really disorganized. And that caused me to have lots of anxiety, which as a result would cause me to shut down.
mhm,
And, like for example, I try to visit my family on the weekends, but like during finals week I know for a fact that my anxiety is going to be like through the roof, that I just
mhm,
can't, I can't talk to anyone, I can't I can't see my family.
Mhm.
And that's just like for me, that's like my protection. Like my anxiety is like my way of just like, I need to focus on what's my top priority, which is, getting work done. And then after I can socialize and hang out with people. But yeah, that's kind of like where my anxiety and introversion ties in,
Yeah.
especially like really anxious events like with school and stuff.
Okay. You know what? I never really even thought about it like that too. I'm not in school now anymore, but I was like thinking back and I was like, I I wasn't going to my family because they're a bit far up, as you know. But like I didn't even think about how that could like tests and things like that, that kind of pressure could also like tie in as well.
Mhm.
Um I am curious, in those cases of, socializing with other people, um, you're trying to retain your energy because as an introvert, like you're trying to make sure you're not overstimulated. Um, but then also like managing your anxiety at the same time. What strategies or coping mechanisms have you tried to help keep them at balance?
Mhm.
Whether they
Yeah.
worked or not, out of curiosity too. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the longest time I'd always say, "Oh yeah, I love going to the gym. I'd go to the gym." But
Hmm.
I think right now that's kind of in a pause because I'm dealing with some separate social anxiety issues around revolving
Yeah.
around the gym, and it's not really an interest. It's not something that I'm interested now in the moment.
Gotcha.
So I would say like usually during those like during during those moments where I'm feeling anxiety and I just don't want to talk to anyone, my I just shut down. I try to reserve the energy that I have left. I go on my phone. Like surprisingly, I go on my phone and I just
Yeah.
scroll through TikTok or I go on
Hmm.
YouTube. Right now, I'm really into like listening to or watching podcasts,
Hmm.
and that kind of helps me kind of restore some sense of what's it called? Um, it helps me come back into homeostasis. There you go.
Ah, okay. Psychology word.
Yes. I know. Yeah, back in balance.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I just remembered, cooking.
Ooh, okay.
For some reason, yeah, like I'm not a fan of cooking, but
Mhm.
for some reason, when I do start cooking, I forget about everything else, and
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that I'm focusing on like the recipe
Yeah.
and like focusing on one activity kind of
Mhm.
helps me forget about everything else and it
Yes.
calms my anxiety a
Mhm.
lot.
That is a good one. You said that and I just got thrown back. I don't do a lot of cooking right now, but I remember a specific phase. It was literally like before we graduated when because I was still living in the apartments in the residence
Mhm,
area. And because literally it was like I was inside all day.
mhm,
Sometimes I go out, things like that. I did a lot of
mhm.
cooking during that time.
Yeah.
And maybe I would also like I watch Community.
Mm,
That's so
mhm,
like that was like me tapping out for a minute too. So I like that one. That's a good one. I think hmm for me, like tapping back to like for specifically social events and like gearing myself up
mhm,
for those things. Knowing if I need to like go to a social event. I'm probably not gonna stack social events. Not like I'm like popping off like that, but like I'm not gonna stack social events back to back or anything. Um, I know my balance.
mhm,
So I think that's specifically important because I also just am aware of how my interactions could go with others. And if you want to hang out, let's go, let's do this. But if you're getting me after a long day, it's not going to be the best. So maybe not. Or if you want to do a
mhm,
chill activity, let's do a chill activity. Let's watch a movie, just vibes. I've taken naps at social events, like like it just depends. But those are people who like understand and know me,
mhm.
and that's why once again it's important to know your circle. So
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Something that helps me too is I like to take showers
mhm.
before events because like that's kind of like my moment of like privacy.
Yeah,
I like to think for I don't know why. I don't know if it's just like the it's just my personality, but I like to plan how like events are going to happen. So I
Hmm.
like to have like, okay, here's plan A. Like if this goes south, all right, we can go to plan B. And if I'm just not vibing with the event, then I'm gonna just, like what you said, like knowing your boundaries and just,
Yeah.
just leave when I feel like it's too much for me. And
Okay.
I like to do that in the shower.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So then is that kind of like your way of finding like your perfect balance for like socializing? Like just literally just knowing your
Mhm.
personal, I guess once again, your personal cup. Yeah, like knowing where you are.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the type of person that likes to I like to have like a plan, I guess, or I guess
Mhm.
just, I guess I don't know why I like saying plan, but I guess, just
Yeah.
realize where my boundaries are and just, if something goes south, then, I can give myself grace and just,
Yeah.
tell tell myself and tell others that, I need to head out. It's give an excuse or something. I have work
Yeah.
tomorrow, something like that.
Literally, yeah. Speaking of work, that's a good tie-in. I am curious, how does that like social balance tie in with work? Is that the same exact process or is it different? Because for me, once again, we work with kids.
Mhm.
I teach middle school literally from 7:30 to basically 5 o'clock. So um I think, and unfortunate enough to say, work kind of does take the balance because I know that's a lot of time where I am completely in socialization mode. But within work, though, when I have my lunch, lights are going off. I'm sitting in sitting in like low light because the window's still there. Sitting in low light, no kids around me. I'm in my room. I'm eating my lunch. Maybe I'll watch a podcast if I have time, um, to just kind of like chill. But I always at least give myself at least like a good 15 minutes to just like recap. And then if I do need to go back in to do some work real quick, then I'll do that. But
Mhm.
definitely I check in with myself throughout the day too,
Yeah.
even amidst of all that consistent socialization.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, with my current job, I provide early intervention services to
Mhm.
kiddos who have, like speech delays or, they require like a form of therapy.
Mhm.
So I tend to go into like their houses. So it's like pretty like
Got it.
invasive, like having to go into their
Mhm.
house and, give them support. But one thing that I like to do is, because typically I work anywhere between like 8
Mhm.
a.m. all the way to like 6:30. Like it
Mhm.
depends on the day, how many clients I see.
Yeah.
Um, but what I like to do is usually, before the sessions, I like to sit in my car and kind of just, I guess, mentally prepare like
Mhm.
what's my goal for the session, what toys I'm going to bring. And then after the session, depending if the session went well or if it didn't go well, I like to
Mhm.
kind of just sit there and, usually have to like write down my notes. So that's kind of like my way of, I guess, just like venting,
Mhm.
venting through like my notes, like how the session went. And
Yeah.
music helps. Sitting in my car and listening to music helps. Earlier today, I like when I tend to have like long gaps of time between my sessions, I like
Yeah.
to walk. Luckily, I live in an area where
Ooh,
there's the beach, so I like to
nice.
walk near
Mhm.
the beach.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I like to go for walks when I have breaks, those long breaks,
Mhm.
and listen to music in my car and go for just like long drives. Like I
Mhm.
tend to take the back roads after like a long day. So
Yeah.
little things like that kind of
Oh, that sounds
help
so peaceful.
me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, those are good ones. I think about that. It doesn't happen now because one, I don't drive anymore. But I used to do that. I taught at a summer camp, and once again, constant overstimulation. When I would go on my lunch, I would just sit in my car for sure, as well. Walks are always a good one too. I love walks and the drives. Blast the music. I feel that. We've talked about it a bit of just like navigating like anxiety and how introversion ties in, but I am curious if you specifically found ways that help build resilience to, combating your anxiety and things.
Mhm.
For me, I'm a girl in a similarity to you who loves to journal. I love me a good passion planner, and I've also like gotten into therapy and just I realized for me, because I am so self-aware, most of the time I understand exactly why I'm feeling the way I feel, which I am lucky enough to say that. But it's just me needing to talk to someone and vent it out and maybe getting other ideas from someone and things like that. But definitely for me, it's journaling, planning it out to have a visual outside of my own brain. Like you said, I need a to-do list. I need to see it. And then also I end up doing like creative outlets too. So those were I kind of like try to build resilience and combat, when I am feeling anxious.
Yeah, those are really good ones. I think pretty much the same thing for me.
Mhm,
I'm a visual learner as well, so I really like to kind of just like write things out, like whether like on my planner or like on like my to-do lists or something like that.
mhm.
For the longest time, I have like those what are they called? Like those drawing books,
Oh,
but like
like the adult coloring books.
yeah, those,
Mhm,
yeah. So I really like doing that.
mhm.
It's so funny. I have like my little box of like self-care, but like I haven't
That's
really looked
good.
at it for a while. But
Mhm,
yeah, like if I ever remember when I'm like feeling you know, when I just, need to like, I guess what you said, like find resilience, I like to go into my little
mhm,
box and do like some coloring. Listening to music helps.
mhm.
Um yeah, I really like to listen to like calming music. I feel like that really kind of like
Yeah.
recharges me. Yeah.
Okay. Curiosity question. As an introvert, have you found
Mhm.
at some points where actually being social has helped you like get out of your anxious mind for a second?
Yes, I would say yes.
Mhm.
Y- I'm trying to think. Surprisingly, it's whenever I'm in school
Okay.
and I'm thinking out because for my program, it's like a once a week kind of situation, and I'm
Mhm.
like usually with like a group of other um students, other master students.
Yeah.
And so it's like I pretty much know I have like a group of people that I know pretty well. So that's by socializing with them, that kind of like recharges me. It kind of gives me like a break from like work and like life outside of school because I'm pretty
Mhm.
much just like on campus for like 9 hours a day or like yeah,
Yeah.
9 hours a week. And so yeah, that has helped me surprisingly.
Okay.
And in the past, like socializing and going out like in groups has helped me, but I think because of the pandemic, that kind of
Mhm.
changed a bit. And
Mhm.
so I'm kind of surprised that, that I tend to find socializing with friends like within like my cohort for school has
Got
helped
it.
me.
Okay.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like usually it tends to be like also like proximity too.
Hmm.
So yeah, I get that. That's good. Yeah, for me, my socialization is usually via Zoom, which is funnily enough, like I still very much use Zoom. I also just moved away from everyone, so that just happens to be the case.
Hmm.
Um, I did want to move into talking about how anxiety um and introversion could be viewed for the outside world. So I do want to talk about how this could be applied to mental health in general, specifically for anxiety. But what do you think are some ways like mental health could be like less stigmatized in the world? And what do you think could happen to have more people also feel comfortable talking about what they are going through, whether that is like anxiety or whether they're just being comfortable being honest about who they are as introverts?
Yeah, I think definitely finding a group of people that, that they feel comfortable talking with. Like I'm like once again I'm going back into therapy, but I'm gonna attend like a group therapy session. So I'm actually looking really forward to that because it's kind of like I'm gonna be talking with other female identifying folks who also deal with anxiety and like similar struggles with like understanding their identity. And I
Mhm,
think that's going to be really nice because it's, not only am I going to get my voice heard, but I'm also going to hear other people's experiences and
mhm,
hear, their perspective with like anxiety or depression and stuff like that. So yeah, I think definitely finding folks alike and people who might also be dealing with um, similar experiences as them.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, nowadays, like social media is like such a big thing. So I just feel like there needs to be like I already know there's lots of like Instagram accounts that like talk
Mhm.
a lot about mental health and they advocate for having people's voices heard around that type of stuff, especially for BIPOC communities.
Mhm.
So I think definitely like more representation and just having more um awareness that there are resources for people
Yeah.
that deal with anxiety and that they're not alone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely think yeah, what's interesting about the social media thing is that I tend to see the things that I'm interested in, right? So
Mhm.
then what makes it also hard is people who are like pretty much aware about those things are the ones who are getting driven to those Instagram pages. What is it called? The algorithm
Yeah.
of it all,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I do think just as much as like having a sick day is, valued in like workplace, I think mental health
Yeah.
days are super important. We're starting to see them a little bit more here and there, but not everyone's adapted
Mhm.
to it. And I think I would
Mhm.
I would love to see that because it is something that's super important. Um, you know, I think for me, I'm working on being transparent in regards to having an anxious day or an anxious moment.
Mhm.
And also just being honest with myself, like, yeah, maybe mental health days don't exist for, my job, but it's like if I'm not there and I'm not present, like tap out. So because I can literally think back to a day when I went to work and I shouldn't have, and I was just kind of
Mhm.
like fighting through it.
Mhm.
Um, but working on definitely transparency, not only with like work, but like family, friends. Like, hey, today's not a really great day. My energy might be low, but I still want to be present. Or maybe today, hey, energy is really low. I'm going through anxiety. I'm not going to be present. Whatever that decision is, and wherever I am, depending on that. Um,
Definitely.
so I definitely feel like transparency is key.
Mhm.
Um, and I think openness in regards to transparency is key. So people understanding where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In regards to introversion, I'm also working on being honest and upfront as well. Like this is a work in progress at this moment, especially like at having a new job. I've been a teacher for almost 2 years now, but I switched schools, so that was a whole new social environment I had to switch to.
Mhm.
But just being honest, like, hey, people are inviting me out. Gonna be honest. If the event is not planned out well enough, and things are gonna happen last minute, and I've already got in my head, I'm gonna be in my bed that day and you didn't give me the time until an hour before, I'm probably going to tap out on you. And that's
Mhm.
just me as an introvert because I already know I've gotten into comfortable zone. I did not mentally prepare to socialize, and it's not a you thing; it's a me thing. So
Yeah.
I was upfront about that recently. They had invited me something, but they didn't have the full details. I was like, I'm gonna let you know if it's not fully complete and it's not me being rude or tapped out. I'm gonna tap out. And it's not
Mhm.
because I don't like you, but it just means it's last minute. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be comfortable at home.
Mhm.
So I think that helps in regards to also getting rid of the miscommunication of oh you don't like me kind of thing. It's like no, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's me figuring out things and also just me as who I am. Like hey, like literally if like for me last minute things don't work at all. I don't know if you feel the same, but I can't automatically
Yeah.
just like get in social zone.
Yeah. I feel like I need like a week in advance. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want to say it, but I was like, I need like a week in advance.
Yeah, no, I've done it less than that, but for me, I would prefer a week as well. But if
Mhm.
I've done less than that, I must really appreciate your presence
Yeah.
because man, oh man. But no, I've gotten things like, oh, hey, we're gonna meet today at 2.
Mhm.
What? I'm
Mhm.
in bed. Like it's
Mhm.
too late.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I really like that you pointed that out. I think another thing that came out that I think could also help with like both is just like checking in with not only yourself but also with like other people like
Mhm.
um and checking in to see if they're comfortable about like talking about their anxiety and if
Mhm.
if that's just something that's very taboo for them and in their culture they just don't really like talking about it, then it's like okay, like true, like I'm gonna just let you know how check in with myself and check in with you and I respect, if you don't want to talk about that, or if if the other person's like extroverted and you're just like, oh, I just can't. I'm sorry. Like,
Mhm.
it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, back to the phrase, yeah.
Mhm.
It's true though, because for me, I talked about, hey, like, I'm trying to work on just being transparent about it. That doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that because for me, I'm noticing I just wanna be for me, that's like a connector of like communication and just general social understanding.
Mhm.
But it's true, like some people are like, that is not how I best handle it. And there are days where it's like I'll have an anxious moment and nobody will ever know. But sometimes it's like if I know it's something that's like really digging at me and I'm like, I think it's affecting other people. But
Mhm.
yeah, I totally get that too. I'm glad you noted that in regards to like how people handle it. It's gonna be different.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
hmm um, s in regards to handling it and, in regards to being anxious and introverted, let's talk about, like, possible strengths and positive outcomes. I know
Ooh.
sounds weird, right? Like, "Huh?" Positive outcomes and strengths of being anxious and introverted. So, Imma throw out a few of mine real quick. So, positive for my introversion, I will say I am once again, I'm self-aware, and I think that happens to be because I tend to be in my own head a lot. So
Mhm.
I'm always like thinking. The overthinking, I'll do a little too much, but it tends to help a lot in ways as well. Um, I'm comfortable being by myself. I could go to the movies by myself. I could go shopping by myself. I really love that. Like I can do whatever I want and I'm not held back by someone else's schedule. I love that I am comfortable by myself like that. Um, because 'cause I'd be traveling, whether it's across the street or somewhere else.
Mhm.
Um, in regards to anxiety, while I cannot stand how it feels, like, sometimes I wake up anxious, I have no idea why. Um, it does make me a bit more introspective, therefore going back to self-awareness. Then I start to be like, "Okay, why am I feeling the way I feel at this moment? What is happening in my life right now?" It makes me take a stop, because I feel like life is so boom, 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 boom,
Mhm.
boom. Sometimes in a weird way, anxiety kinda helps me check in and, like, pause. Like, you need to actually think about this, talk to someone about it, whatever however you need to process it, but you're not processing. So that does come through well, weirdly enough to say. So those are some of mine. I will say, kind of like what you said though too, being an introvert, I do love that I'm super analytical. Like I'm always watching a room too. Kind of like, and I don't know, maybe that's the psychology in us as well. But I tend to blend it a little bit too because I can like play off, not that I'm playing it off, but I think I have low key like ambivert as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but usually if I'm, like, socialize and then I tap out, you could see my my battery drain in a social interaction, but I'm always, like, scanning the room. "Oh, who that person. Oh, okay, they're kinda chilling." Like, I'm always just so s that I don't know, I'm a good listener and I'm a good observer, so I love that
Mhm.
about me as well. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Let's see, for anxiety. Yeah, definitely like self-awareness. I like to do body tapping. So like if I
Mm.
feel like a physical somatic like reaction because of
Yeah.
my anxiety, I like to tap into like where it is. So typically it's either like in my chest or in my head, and I like to tap in and be like, okay, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? And
Mm,
usually by acknowledging that I'm feeling something physically, I'm able to try to redirect myself and kind of help with that sensation.
yeah.
And then also, yeah, for strengths, definitely that self awareness. And I've mentioned this a lot throughout our time together, but I like
Mhm.
to see my anxiety as like a way to protect me. Like there's a reason why
Mm.
I'm feeling anxious. Maybe it's like that gut reaction towards towards meeting someone new.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe it's trying to protect me from something, and I tend to um like analyze it and kind of go more in depth, like, okay, like um why did I feel anxious during this moment? Like what was the reason? So yeah, that's kind of like how I view anxiety as like a strength, as like a form of protection for me at least.
Okay.
Um and then with introversion, definitely, yeah, like you said, the analytical. I like to blend in and kind of like observe like what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, I like to be a part of the chisme, the gossip. So it's like I'm very
Yes.
like okay, like I like to blend in and like listen and observe to like
Mhm,
people's like bodily cues and reactions and stuff. So
mhm,
yeah, that's a perk for introversion. I'd also say I'm not really, well, it's hit or miss with like the whole ambivert thing. Sometimes I like to have the spotlight on me, sometimes I
mhm.
don't. So it's kind of like hit or miss, but for the most part, like I like not to have the spotlight on me. I like to kind of just like chill back and kind of like watch
Yeah.
other people shine and do their thing and
Mhm.
yeah, just like to
Yes.
listen and reflect on what people talk about.
I feel that. Definitely like in a group of extroverts, I'm for sure the introvert. I think about that in regards to like, not only like when we were house advisors, but I think of like in the musical theater world, like everybody is
Mhm,
extrovert. And so I definitely I tend to also like to sit back and just observe. I
yeah.
would like to know, I feel like introverts are the best secret keepers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because literally I just want to know what's going on. I love a good story,
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I'm just sitting here listening and it stays with me because who am I gonna tell? Who am I gonna
mhm.
tell?
Yeah, and I
Um,
feel like also like I was thinking of like another strength that we as introverts have. Like we're
mm,
able to observe what people do, and if let's say they do something that didn't come out the way it was supposed to, like they made a mistake, I'm able
yeah,
to prevent myself from doing that mistake that they did. Like I just
yeah.
think to like my work, like I tend sometimes I work in teams with other interventionists, and I see, I try not to. Well, okay, I'm not the type of person to like lead the sessions when I'm with someone else. But if I notice that something didn't play out the way it was supposed to, I know next time when we do have session to not do that and maybe try something different. So yeah, I feel like that's also like another pro in terms of like being an introvert too.
Yeah. See, they would have never guessed all of
Yeah.
these options and opportunities. But it's good because I did want to talk about it. Like while there are struggles, like there's a reason that anxiety pops up, and then while we do tend to have struggles in regards to like how we are perceived as introverts, like there are some benefits. Like no, we are
Mhm.
not, in a hole just sitting there by ourselves. Like there are things that we are doing and
We're
understanding.
flourishing.
We're flourishing. We're always watching.
Mhm.
So, you know, yeah, I don't know. I love it. Um, for the extroverts out there, hopefully you have an introvert friend.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you do. I feel like introverts and extroverts as friends, they always tend to like blend in. There's just like one thing
Mhm.
of like there's always an extrovert somewhere who adopts an introvert.
Mhm.
So I think that's like the funniest saying. Um, but before we wrap up, I did want to ask,
Yes.
of you, do you have any advice or words of encouragement to fellow anxious introverts listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I think definitely don't be afraid of being an introvert or having feelings of anxiety. There's other people like you, like us,
Mhm,
that also deal with this stuff. And I know, at least for my experience, I tend to get a little bit in my head for being an introvert at times and for having anxiety towards, being an introvert. And it's okay to have those thoughts, but it's all about kind of figuring out like what works for you. What if whether it's like you flourish within a close knit of group of
mhm,
close knit of people, or if you prefer to just do your own thing. I think that it's okay to be an introvert and it's okay to have these feelings. My
mhm.
laptop was acting kind of wonky, sorry.
You're good.
um and it's okay to reach out and acknowledge those feelings that you have. And sometimes they come and go. Sometimes there's days where you feel like a complete extrovert, you feel like you have it all and you can just
Yeah.
talk to anyone that you see. And then there's another day where you're just like, I just want to be in my room all day, I just want to like not talk to anyone. And that's, I feel like that's life. I tend to have those
Yeah.
bursts of extroversion, and then those moments of just wanting to just be in my room all day.
Yeah, that's so
I
true though.
feel like,
That is life. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's like a spectrum. Like I feel like there's no black and white. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's me. There's no black and white when it comes to being an introvert,
Hmm.
an extrovert, or an ambivert. I feel like it's a little mix of all in between.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because I was just about to say that like even an extrovert could have like introvert moments and ways. Um, but I definitely think, yeah, there's no like hardcore setting.
Hmm.
But I think in regards to like how they like term it, I guess it's like who are you on a daily basis.
Hmm.
But I was literally thinking that too, like an extrovert isn't on 100%, like that's just not how humans work. They need their downtime as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And then also,
Um,
sorry, I wanted to
you're
say,
good.
like, also, like, I was thinking back, like, oh, like we're reserving our energy for things that are important to us.
Mm.
And that's okay to give yourself grace for that.
Yeah.
It's okay to give yourself grace to reserve your energy for moments that don't really aren't as important, like whether it's like attending a social event and you just that your cup is overfilling, is over pouring out, it's
Hmm.
okay. You're just reserving your energy for things that matter to you, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. I literally talk about that in my intro episode too, of just like what being an introvert is for me. And it's like truly just like deciding where I put my time. And it's not a you thing. Once again, not a you thing. It's just, where where do I decide to fill my cup?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super good. I agree with everything you said. I also just want to say like once again in connection to what you just said as well, like and just embracing who you are. Like
Mhm.
you're fine who you are. Don't get uncomfortable, when people try to make you uncomfortable. Because I don't know, for me, I've experienced ways being like, why are you not talking as much? Why are you not doing? It's just like, let me be me.
Mhm.
Let me just sit and I'm just chilling. I'm in my space.
Yes.
So just, be you. Don't forget to, in regards to anxiety, don't forget to just figure out how you manage it. Whatever is best for you, never forget to like tap into that when it's that time.
Mhm.
Once again, in this world of today, we get caught up so much and maybe even trying to get there before it becomes an anxious moment. And just like taking care of yourself on a daily.
Mhm.
Those are mine. But this was a good conversation, Alania, just because like I can't think of like a lot of the times in regards to like talking about anxiety, but also just like talking about introversion, which is
Mhm.
why I'm also just excited in regards to this podcast of like there's going to be a lot of different topics in regards to introversion, of course, but then also just random topics that I like to talk about. So then I also become an extrovert.
Wow.
So we see how that ties in and that blends together. But thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your like thoughts on a vulnerable topic. It is something that's like once again, people don't talk about it a lot because it is something that is vulnerable to talk about. I appreciated your honesty and your openness. I hope that listeners, you appreciate this conversation. And if you could relate to anything that we talked about today or connect to anything we talked about today, feel free to share your thoughts, experiences, or some wisdom. We'll take
Yes.
it. Always share those things in the Q&A section. If you like this episode, share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow this podcast to stay notified when new episodes drop. You can follow me, as always, on Instagram at KaVonna to stay updated as well. And then you can go ahead and look at the episode description to see what Alani is doing, catch her bio, and to stay updated on what she's doing as well. Get some sunshine, get some air, have an amazing week, and I will see you next week on the Introvert Social Hour. Thanks for joining. Bye.